2, 1. Hello and welcome. My name is Mary Bennett, and today Bruca Theater presents Still Waiting for Godot. This is one of our interviews for our 2020-2021 season, Persevere. And we're so happy today to bring together our director and our assistant director for Waiting for Godot, Holly Natwora, and Julia Butler. Thank you so much for coming along the ride with us, ladies. Good to see you. So we've talked about this for a long time in wanting to actually do an interview about all of the different pieces we've been talking about as a production team since closing on March 13th with the COVID-19 pandemic. And just to catch our audiences up, at that point, Bruca Theater was midway through our 26th season. I think that's correct. No, 27th season. And we were about to mount Secret in the Wings. And you all were in rehearsal for Waiting for Godot. And we shut it all down because we didn't know what was going to happen. But at the time, I thought it was just going to be perhaps a couple of weeks, I'm sure. But that's not what turned out. And now we're still talking about this show 7 months later. Is that correct? Is my math okay with that? Oh my God.
Yeah, I think so.
Right?
Yeah.
So thank you both for having this conversation today and also talking to our audiences. So
we miss you, audiences.
Well, we miss you so much.
So much. And I do want to do a call out to our bookcases. We did agree to bring our books together and look as studious and intellectual as we possibly could to have our Still Waiting for Godot conversation. So thank you for that. Okay, so to kind of dig in, I think it's really fun for all of us to have the discussion, audiences to hear why a person would be drawn to directing or presenting a certain play. And I'm just going to start off by saying, Holly, you've directed with us for quite a few years, and always the work that you bring to Bruca and how just specific and knowledgeable you are about the work and how important you make it to you is so incredible. And so your work as a director and your worth of the work that you create in our community is just amazing. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you've done a few different shows in the past. You've done The Crucible for us, incredible show, Dangerous Liaisons, The Diary of Anne Frank, all, and those are not just the only ones, but all very profound works. And so you decided last year before last, because we try to plan at least a couple months in advance.
A week ahead.
A week ahead. Holly hates that. I'm always like, hey, what about tomorrow? What drew you to Waiting for Godot?
It's actually my favorite play of all time. I love it. I had an instructor teach it when I was an undergrad at The Ohio State University. And, I was in my 20s, so you're at that age, and Julia can attest to this, where you're searching for your identity, you're starting to make your philosophy, right, about life and the world and how you're going to apply yourself to what you think your life should be about. I think that's a lot of what that journey is in your 20s, right? Especially when you first go away to college. And so I had a teacher give it to us to study, and it just blew me away. It's an incredible play. I do tend to be drawn towards classic theater, although this is considered absurdist theater, but it's classic absurdist theater. But it just really spoke to me and terrified me and comforted me at the same time. And I teach it now up at TMCC in my Intro to Theater class. And I do encourage my students to buy a copy copy of it, and read it every 5 or 10 years, because I think as you age, the play opens up more and more and more. It becomes more understandable and more relevant and deeper and richer the longer you live on this planet. And so I'm years old now, and so it's become really, really rich to me, and I wanted to share that experience with other people. So basically, that's it.
Excellent.
I love it. It's my favorite play, and I think it's hilarious. So that's the other thing, right? I think, and Julia thinks so too, which is really good. But it's hilarious, right? It's super funny. Most people don't think it's funny. Most people think like, "Oh my God, I just want to kill myself now." But it's so funny, and that's the thing about life, right? Life, even the tragedies in life, you have to laugh, right? You have to laugh or you're going to cry, right? And I wrote down a quote before this interview, because I was trying to think. I knew there was a famous quote, but it was that comedy, life is a comedy for those who think and a tragedy for those who feel. And Beckett himself calls it a tragic comedy, this play. And so, and I think that's what life is. Life is a tragic comedy. And so I think it really represents the human experience and the questions and the suffering that we all go through, and the joys and the angst that we feel as a human being as we search for meaning, for the meaning of our lives. The end.
You see that why we love Holly. You see that? It's right there. So then we have this marvelous woman, Julia Butler, who helps us at Bruca and does so many incredible things. So smart. Thank you. And you brought her on as assistant director. Do you call it assistant to the director or assistant director?
At first, it was assistant to the director.
Mm-hmm.
But now I call her assistant director.
Look what you earned. Look at that. That's
so amazing. Yeah. I mean, Julia is a very smart woman, and she's someone that I've worked with in the past, but not this closely. And so, you know, it's been really nice to have her there. There was at least one time, if not two, where I wasn't feeling so well, and I felt completely comfortable turning the rehearsal over to Julia. I knew that she would be able to move forward with the rehearsal process without me there, that she would make sure that the vision that we've talked about, that's what would be continued without my presence, you know. And so that's a huge trust, I think. And I don't have that with a lot of people. Not that it's a bad thing, but one of your questions was, why did I want to be a director? And the biggest answer has to do with control. And so, you know, so it was a big deal, I think, for me to relinquish some of that control to Julia. And as we move forward, even the other day when we met, we were making decisions about some of the footage that we wanted to show to the audience. And, you know, I was able to say, I don't know, Julia, you decide on this one. I'm going to let you, you know, decide if we're going to take this one or not take this one. And we really had a real collaborative process, I think, in that decision about which clips we were going to take and things like that she could answer herself.
That's great. So Julia, you have come into the fray at Bruca, which can be really interesting for any of us, right? If we consider Bruca the entity and we are the ones that are entering into that. What drew you to this project?
So Waiting for Godot is also probably one of my favorite, it's probably my favorite play. I read it not too long ago, probably 2 years ago, in a formative time of my life, and it really struck a chord in who I wanted to be and how I wanted to live and how I wanted to create art. And so when Holly said that she was doing Waiting for Godot, I was like, I have to be a part of it, because I've worked with Holly. We did Stupid Effing Bird. I did a couple of her backstage crew things, and then I did her props for the Crucible, and watching her process is magical. And so I wanted to learn how to create that kind of magic with one of my favorite plays.
So then to sort of jump off of that too, do you see yourself becoming a director?
I am much like Holly, where I like to have the control of art, of our artistic process. So I would love to continue to do it. I've done a couple stage readings for the festival and I've loved it. And this process has been amazing. I've learned so much about how to make something really, really, really deep and rich. And I would love to continue to do it.
Love it. How exciting is this? Isn't this great? This is all coming from people inspiring each other and giving example, and just beautiful. What's the process of how you guys work together? You touched on this a little bit, but as director and then as assistant director, we'll always get people asking us. They'll say, well, I want to learn. I want to be a director, but I've never directed before. And so we've talked about how do we create that opportunity, and how do you bring people on so that as a director, you still feel your vision is coming across, but also as assistant director, you can collaborate and work together. And so I'm curious, because I feel like your relationship and the process that is still going works. There's a lot of elements that work well on that.
Well, my whole job is to support and understand Holly's vision and learn from her, because this is something that I've never really done before. And the first thing that I learned is that it is time and it is effort. You have to want to really understand the piece that you're doing. And that doesn't mean reading it and then saying, okay, well, this is what this is. And okay, no, we went through word by word and said, and she was like, okay, does this word make sense to you? Or does this phrase make sense to you? And there was a lot of like biblical references in Godot that I had no idea. And if you don't sit down and take the time to really go through all of that and understand the context of when the play was written and what the playwright was trying to say, or what was going on in that playwright's life or around them, that was the first thing that I learned in the process. And then being able to listen to Holly's vision and understand where she was getting her inspiration from the text, but also from her own artistic vision, and being able to support that is my job. And it's really cool to learn how to become a good director by just putting in the time and the effort to do it.
Yeah, that's great. We're kind of going in and out a little bit, but I think we're still understandable. So we'll keep going. Sometimes the internet, I don't know if people out there have a hard time with their internet sometimes, what we do. So Holly is director. So kind of same thing, right? It's iffy process bringing on somebody else to collaborate with. What are some of those realizations for you?
Well, kind of like what I said earlier, directing's hard. A lot of people are like, oh, I want to be a director. And it's like, you have no idea how hard it is. I think it's really hard to do a good job, right? Anybody can be a director, just like anybody can be an actor if they just memorize the lines, right? So it's like, I think a lot of people don't understand the director. I think the audience is almost completely blind to the director, which actually is what it's supposed to be.
Right. Unless you've been a director.
But the mark of a good director is that, the director makes it so fantastic that you don't even know what the director did. Right. And so, I knew that Julia had the intellectual capacity to understand, what it was going to take. And I knew that she was serious, and I knew that she would be dedicated, and I knew she would show up on time, and I knew she wouldn't screw around in rehearsal and, chit chat and blah, blah, blah. And I got to go smoke, and you know what I mean? And all of that stuff that you have to put up with. Right. And, and so, and she wanted to learn. And I just felt that you just get a vibe You know what I mean? When you really comes down to it, you have a good vibe or you don't have a good vibe, you know, and we just vibe. That's it. You know, I just knew it wasn't going to. I've worked with someone in the past who was my assistant, and it was a nightmare because we butted heads the whole time, and they would step on me when I would speak, or they would contradict something that I was saying to the cast, or they would try to take more control, you know, over this or that, or it was just a nightmare. And so that's part of why I have been very hesitant to do it. But I just knew that with Julia, you know, that it was going to be pretty effortless. And it's nice to be a teacher. It's nice to impart to someone else what it is that you know, even though sometimes I don't know what it is that I know. I just do. You know, so that was a little bit scary when she said, I want to learn from you. I want you to, you know, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to articulate,
right, that's a responsibility.
You know, yeah, you know, how am I gonna, you know, because part of, just like as an actor, some things that I do as an actor, I cannot tell you how I do it. I just do it. But I think it's because I was so well trained, you know, that it's just something that I do. But being able to then teach somebody else how to do that, I don't know. So I was a little bit scared and apprehensive, you know. After rehearsals, I always leave going, oh, man, they think I'm the biggest loser, you know, like they're all wondering what the heck did we do saying we were gonna do this project, and she's a bonehead and I don't even know, and oh my God, you know. And so but I just keep plugging along. But you know, I do think that like Julia said, I mean, it really, you have, and I've said this before, I mean, I generally work on a project for a year before I even go into rehearsals. And that's all about researching the play, researching the playwright, researching if it is a historical play, like with The Crucible. I mean, I've read so many books on, you know, religious fanaticism and fundamentalist Christians, and you know, because for me it wasn't just about Salem witches, it was about so much more. And so, you know, of course I read the book about the witches and stuff. It is really important to know all those things. Right. Otherwise you can't create the world of the play unless you have explored all of those other aspects that you as the director have to know, because the actors will look to you for an answer. And it's okay sometimes to say, you know, I don't know. But a lot of the times you probably should know.
Right. You're like,
or have an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, but I, you know, with Julia, I just knew it was gonna be a good process for both of us, you know, something that I needed to do too. Right. And you can relate to that, right, Mary, about how, you know, okay, I have this thing that I want to do and it's very precious to me, and I don't want anyone else to touch it, you know, because I'm afraid that, you know, oh no, what if I let them touch it, it gets broken, you know what I mean? But it really is about sharing, right? And
it is, and we've talked about that too, as well. Of I think too, as you grow in generations, part of our gift and our responsibility, if we're still playing in any art or any craft, is that how do we hand this down? How do we share it? And I think it's a better way of saying how do we share it as opposed to handing it down, because there's such sadness with that. Maybe that's one reason we hold on to it so tightly, because I don't want to give it up yet. I still feel like I have, you know, a long time that I still want to work, and I feel like that with you. And but I do know in the generation that we have at Bruca right now is that we have the ability to be able to share more and help create that next generation, because we want the art to continue. We want the theater to continue.
Yes, but also I think that we also need to stay open to what a younger generation brings, right?
Right.
And not be so set, just like we were saying about, you know, Beckett and some other playwrights that just are like, no, you know, it's like, okay, no, I'm in my little world, maybe this younger generation is going to be able to open up my eyes to something that perhaps I didn't see before. Just because I'm older doesn't mean I'm wiser.
So Holly, let me go back and touch on this if you weren't able to complete that thought. Was there anything else that you wanted to say about actually directing Godot, or about you wanting to be a director? Why you want to be a director?
Well, it's interesting because I think Godot itself, it has many themes, and we'll talk about those things. But one of the themes in Godot has to deal with control and what we do have control over and what we don't have control over. And, you know, as the director, you pretty much are in charge of, you don't have control, but it's your vision, right? And there can be just a whole other discussion about whether you're fulfilling the playwright's vision or whether you're fulfilling the director's vision. I tend to lean a little bit more towards you're fulfilling the director's vision, and that all has to do with my graduate school training and things like that. But anyway, you know, it's your vision. I'm a very visual person, and I believe in telling stories with pictures, and I think I'm pretty good at it. And so, you know, I've always wanted to see, and this play would be interesting to see if you could do it, but, you know, how do you communicate the ideas or themes of the play or the feelings of the characters of the play when language is a barrier, right? Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that the absurdists sort of believed, was that language was an ineffective means of communication. And I also believe that. And so I tend to be more visual, right? I don't stress as much on the words as I do with what is the picture, right? And so I like that. It's like putting together a collage, you know? And it's so fascinating, though, because the actors and the other artists also bring their ideas, but then I get to pick and choose, right? I'm like, oh, that's great, keep that, or no, or oh, that's great, but it'd be so much better if you did it like this. And so I feel like I'm the guide, right?
Right.
I'm the captain. So
I just saw you two as the conductor in your description, right?
Right, yeah, kind of. So it's not, I don't want to control everybody and make everybody my puppet, but it is about, I have more of an artistic input and more of an artistic satisfaction as a director than I did as an actor. You know, being an actor is incredible, but you are really at the mercy of so many other things, right? You're the vessel through which the playwright speaks and the character becomes alive, which is an incredible talent, and you know, it is magic in and of itself. But then I get to orchestrate, like you just said. I get to orchestrate those moments. I get to orchestrate those relationships. I get to orchestrate those discoveries. I get to orchestrate the tension and the tempo and the, you know, all of it, you know, and I just find it incredibly satisfying. It's terrifying, but also satisfying, because as the director, everyone is looking at you. Okay, what are we going to do, right?
Right.
And with Godot, it's usually I go into a play and I have a really, really clear vision, and I know exactly what I want, and I know what the set's going to look like, and yada, blah, la, la. And with Godot, I said to Julia in the beginning of the process, I'm like, I don't really know. I'm not sure I really know. And that was kind of scary. But I think the play makes you feel that way, right? Because the play itself is about not knowing. It's about questioning. It's about being uncomfortable. It's about thinking you know and then not knowing, right? And so
you're jumping into theme. So let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's jump into that theme.
Right.
So, so
that passed the time.
It would have passed in any case.
Yes, but not so rapidly.
What do we do now?
I don't know.
Let's go.
We can't.
Why not?
We're waiting for Godot.
Oh. Oh. Oh.
Bye.